Hello, everyone, and welcome to TBR's Future Friday, TBR 2015 Predictions, a series of thought leadership webinars being held each Friday between January 16th and February 13th, 2015. Each Friday, TBR's research teams will share predictions for 2015 and beyond across the hardware, software, cloud, security, devices, professional services, telecom, and digital markets. Top TBR analysts will address the trends, drivers, and the business outcomes they predict will occur throughout the year. The Future Friday webinar series stakes out the status, changes, and key market directions that will emerge in the foreseeable future. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. First, we'll be recording today's session and posting it on our YouTube site, TBRI channel. We encourage you to visit our channel to watch this presentation or any of the others we've posted. Second, we'd like to hear your opinions and thoughts on the material we're presenting. Please send any questions or comments through the Q&A or chat function. The presenters will address them at the end of the session. Or if you'd like to set up a client inquiry for more detailed discussion, please reach out directly to our presenters at the end of the webinar to set up those calls. Third, we'll send out the slides to everyone registered for today's webcast within 24 hours of the conclusion of the webinar. You can also find the slides, as well as our thought leadership pieces, other webinars, and commentaries on our TBR SlideShare site. I'm Stuart Williams, and I'm moderating today's webinar. Leading our digital webinar is Patrick Heffernan, Principal Analyst and IT Services Practice Manager, and Steph Ulinski, Senior Analyst in our digital practice.
Hi, this is Seth Ulinski. So thanks for joining us today, everybody. If you're not aware, there's a massive opportunity in digital advertising, and if you look back even, say, 5 years ago, the piece or the percentage of ad spend captured by ad tech vendors was probably in the 5 to 10% range, and for 2015 we're looking at that upping to roughly 30%. So if you can envision a dollar going into a funnel, roughly 30% of that is being consumed by ad tech vendors. So if you're a publisher, that's not such a good change of metrics, but increasingly where advertising and media kind of led the show initially, it's increasingly being more tech-driven. So that's where the ad tech vendors and the platforms, whether it's programmatic, AI, algorithms and the like, are adding value. So even though Google is a juggernaut in the space and leading in a couple of different segments, including buy-side platforms or DSPs, as well as ad exchange business, there's definitely a lot of blue ocean and a number of open independent platforms who we're covering here, and they certainly have a huge opportunity.
And this is Patrick Heffernan, and I'm going to sort of explain what digital marketing services is. And right now you're asking, so why are you leading off with what is ad tech and what is digital marketing services? That's the way we break down this particular space. I'll explain that a little more in just a minute, but you can see from the slide here, we anticipate this digital marketing services is going to top $150 billion in revenue on its own in 2015. Similar to ad tech, a lot of changes going on. I think one of the most important things to consider here is that IBM and Accenture, two of the large management consulting and systems integration companies, vendors that are out there, both of them consider themselves to be the largest digital agency in the world, and both of them consider Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter to be among their most important competitors. So the stakeholders in this space, including ad agencies, including consultancies, including traditional marketing services providers, are all getting shook up by what's happening in digital. And to put it in broader perspective then, and sort of explain the way that TBR looks at the world, this is digital transformation as we see it, and those boxes or those circles in blue there are sort of the key attributes of what digital transformation is. And you talk to anyone, any major enterprise, and they've undergone some aspect of digital transformation in the last couple of years. How far they are in that journey depends on who they are and how much they've invested. The purple there are some of the aspects that come out of digital transformation, some of the elements that are required to make it happen. And then we start to see around the outside where it begins to really impact a business. And because TBR takes a vendor-specific business lens approach to our analysis, where we're starting in our journey on digital and understanding the digital space is to look first at marketing. As you can see, there's a lot of other components of digital transformation that we'll be getting into this year and the coming years. But we're starting off with marketing, and that's why we're focused on both digital marketing services and ad tech. So with that as a background, we're going to jump now into the predictions that we have, in particular the ones that we see that have started in 2014 and are continuing into 2015, starting with this first prediction that lines are going to blur, or have been blurring, across digital agencies, IT services, and the ad tech vendors. Seth?
Thanks, Patrick. So if the folks on the line here are familiar with the major agency holding companies such as Publicis, WPP, IPG, these are traditionally media-led agencies, and excuse me, in the past couple of months, Publicis as well as WPP have both made, I would consider, fairly major announcements, with Publicis acquiring a demand-side platform called Run, while WPP and Xaxis have announced that they are, excuse me, earmarking roughly $25 million to build a proprietary data management platform. So if you look at the agency role, historically, of course, they are vendor agnostic, or at least they, have been historically. So the fact that these two major global media entities are taking on, technology, number one, and then number two, they'll be kind of in tandem offering services as well as solutions that could potentially use their own tools, whereas in the past it was third-party software that they were licensing from independent vendors. So there's really kind of a blurring of lines from that standpoint, and there's certainly a lot of conversation going around, again, the notion of open independent platforms. So there's definitely no lack of independent platforms in ad tech. So the fact that these major global media holding companies are making, ad tech acquisitions kind of fuels the fire even more for some of these smaller players to go direct to clients, which has historically it's been a tactic for some, but I do think the fact that some of these big media companies are acquiring competitive solutions is just going to, again, kind of fuel the fire for these independent vendors to go direct to clients. And, that's certainly a theme that we think will continue in 2015.
And this graphic here is a little misleading because I think the impact of cloud is so substantial. It has been across all of IT services over the last couple of years, and there's no reason to think that it's not going to have a massive impact in the advertising technology and digital marketing services space as well. The challenge for the IT services vendors in particular will be understanding how they can, I hate to say harness, but really sort of put their arms around the opportunities in cloud and at the same time be able to take on the opportunities in the advertising technology and digital marketing services space. So that's one trend that we saw in 2014 that's going to continue. Another one that we think is going to continue into 2015 is the demand for digital strategy and marketing technology specialists to increase. I'll let Seth go first, and then I'm going to talk for a while on this one.
Sure. So I guess some of the initial sound bites I can share was when I was in New York City working in the ad tech scene with a few of the vendors, I definitely took note when some of my bigger agency clients, and these were folks at the biggest holding companies, so WPP, IPG, Omnicom, they started to leave their respective agencies and go to the ad tech vendors themselves. And that's certainly a big development. And in addition to that, I did see a couple of instances where folks were at ad tech firms, and then they were all of a sudden working at SAP or IBM. So I think there's a couple of different scenarios playing out here from an HR and human resources standpoint, where you're going to see some really competitive environments kind of prop up, and anybody that knows the space well from an ad tech standpoint knows that you know, headhunters and recruiters are doing very well because there's such a demand.
Yeah, this is something we're seeing across all of professional services, and the name we came up for it in the professional services trend that applies here is these are people unicorns. They're MBAs with 5 years of industry experience who also can do analytics, who also have an emerging technology expertise. There are a few of them, the ones that are in great demand, and as Seth said, you know, the IBMs and Accentures of the world can offer them a lot, but they're not the kind of folks that have traditionally grown up in the ranks of those kinds of companies. So it becomes both a challenge to recruit, to find people that have all those skills, but then it's retaining them. It's making sure that they have a career path that makes sense in a field that is so dynamic and changing so much that anyone who thinks they know what they're doing in 10 years is completely crazy. But again, these are people that have business experience, that have industry experience, and that have emerging technology, specifically digital and analytics experience. They're hard to come by, and everyone has been fighting over them and will continue to, and that's great. So if you're, you know, yeah, Stuart.
Yeah, I think this is a very typical trend for a very hot and different or new market. We've seen the same thing happening in the data analytics trend with data scientists, heavy-duty quant and statistical analysis of data. The transition, the turning point there is some of those people figure out that they can begin to productize or package their insights or their capabilities and start building it into some of the platforms. So the second stage of this, and the part that really begins to go from linear headcount-driven growth to geometric growth, is when that productization begins to happen and the platforms begin to capture some of this human experience so that the masses can consume it. That's when this market really begins to blow up.
And Stuart must have prepared himself and looked at this deck, because look at the next prediction. This is what we're looking to be something new in 2015, ad tech merging with marketing automation, and it's that integration unification of platforms that Stuart just alluded to. And Seth?
Yeah, this is, I think, interesting because you have a lot of ad tech vendors who are already multi-channel solutions across display, video, mobile, social, and they're continuing to expand the formats they support, but they're also going deeper into a data support standpoint, or from a data support standpoint, whether it's a data management platform, kind of bolt-on, or a CMS, so web content management, website optimization. These are things that are increasingly, top of mind for CMOs and chief digital marketers. So definitely, I think ad tech, while some are going to kind of stay true to the game and remain, platforms for automated media buying and analysis and so forth, I do think you're going to see more of this CMS and CRM and email component get built in, whether it's organically or inorganically. So a couple of sound bites on that note would be somebody like Turn partnering with Marketo, who's an email marketing automation specialist. And then another example would be Criteo, which acquired a actually a remarketing specialist called Tedemis last year. So those are just two examples, but I do think you're going to see a lot more of this ad tech moving into marketing automation and hopefully becoming more of this integrated marketing stack that a lot of people are looking for.
And so what Seth just said there about the M&A, the acquisitions, feeds perfectly into our next prediction for 2015, and that's IPOs and M&A accelerating. Now, we have some disagreement in this room about whether or not there's a natural magnetic flow of money towards bright, shiny new technology. But we'll let Seth go first before Stuart and I disagree about this. Seth?
Yeah, you know, ad tech is very dynamic. There's never a dull day. So with that said, Marin Software made an acquisition yesterday, picking up a company called Social Move, headquartered in Paris, with a European-based business that was essentially an API that fed into Facebook and Twitter, allowing marketers to optimize spend in agencies. So, you know, there's definitely a lot of opportunity for the ad tech vendors, whether they're trying to go multi-platform with ad units or getting different channels aligned into their existing platform. So yeah, that's just one soundbite from the past 24 hours.
Yep. Before we get into the debate on shiny objects, we have a question that came in for Seth. Certainly, it's one of the acronyms, and this is a new area. It's filled with all kinds of new acronyms for folks who have been in the traditional IT area. So what is a CMS?
So CMS stands for Content Management System, and that is essentially your web management platform that kind of standardizes and categorizes all of your content and allows you, in some cases, to optimize based on previous browsing history for a given user, or a number of things. If you have a, you know, let's say a custom offer, for example, and you're driving through one piece of creative, you can set up a unique landing page for that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Content management system, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to M&A and acquisitions, you know, I know from experience, and I know from having looked at the market for IT services, professional services, and consulting quite a bit, that over the last couple of years there has been a huge push in acquisitions around digital and around digital marketing. And when you look at a company like, or companies like Accenture, IBM, Deloitte, PwC, they've all made big splashy acquisitions in the last couple of years. I think that trend is going to continue. I think we're going to start to see the fast following KPMG, maybe Atos, some of the other firms that are a little slower in the space to start making those acquisitions. But I do think that there is kind of a bright, shiny new aspect to this, where, or it's the big guys did it, so we have to do it too. Although I think Stuart thinks that the companies are a little better run so that they're not just grabbing what's bright and shiny in the marketplace, right?
Well, the questions here of, you know, that is a natural magnetic flow of money. I love the imagery there is very powerful, but towards shiny, new, and technology-driven things, right? So I believe that it's all about results, right? So when the customers are looking for results, they're turning to platforms, and there are vendors like us and many others who are providing feedback to them on, you know, which platforms deliver that type of ROI. Those firms are beginning to stand out and differentiate from others. Our benchmark in this area tracks the key leaders in this area, and we're seeing several firms outperform the others. Those firms are going to be the ones that are either going to be making acquisitions or that are going to be acquired in a roll-up, right? So it's a race for some of the new entrants, the startups, you know, between the payout for them, right? Is it the IPO payout or is it the M&A payout for them? So I think that it's not. There's some firms that look very shiny, that have some interesting stuff, but they're not winning in the marketplace yet. And those, like anything, there's number one, number two, and then the rest of them tend to not have the margin.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say on margin, great segue. Ad tech vendors, for the most part, there are some that are very much SaaS-led businesses today, or purely SaaS. If you look at the ad exchanges, that's their model, that's their bread and butter. But a lot of the demand-side platforms, or the DSPs, are kind of balancing this managed services model that's kind of their legacy, you know, bread and butter, versus the SaaS, which carries significantly higher margins, but you need tremendous scale to really make your number at the end of the day. So while SaaS continues to be the theme and everybody's kind of trending that way, for the short term, definitely managed services will continue to play a role. And, you know, a lot of the vendors, while they're trying to kind of lean on that SaaS, delivery, they still do have to manage and have that internal client services team to support clients as managed services style.
And that's a good point, and to sort of put together what Stuart and Seth said, at the end of this, once we've walked through all the predictions, we're going to talk a little bit about what's in the research that we've done and the benchmarks that we have. And to Stuart's point, we're very good at figuring out which vendors are leading and for what reasons in a market. And to Seth's point, figuring that out means understanding all the different metrics that go behind it. So far we've hit on 4 predictions, 2 that were what had been happening in 2014 we think will continue. I don't think any of that was a surprise, couldn't have been to anybody. I think our 2 predictions for 2015, again, were, if not safe bets, they weren't crazy and wild and out there, but I think there were things that we're seeing in the market. So this last prediction is more a longer term trend, and I think it is in part fueled by, and I have to admit, I love this slide. I hope everyone recognizes our friend there on the bottom, the multiple faces of him. So I think this particular trend, what we're talking about is a marketplace that in a few years from now will have a few whales and a lot of plankton. And, you know, that is in part influenced by what we're seeing in the IT services sector broadly, where cloud and analytics, the price impact of cloud and the capabilities impact of analytics results in scale and breadth becoming really decisive factors in who can deliver. And over time, if those 2 trends continue as we think they will, you're going to end up with a few whales and a lot of plankton. Seth?
Interesting. No, that's a great point, Patrick. So I think in ad tech, which you know, is kind of my wheelhouse, if you look at a company like TubeMogul, which has made its mark as a pure play video DSP, the fact that they had an announcement a couple weeks back that they were going to enter the display media market is pretty big, because they've gone public. They've already had at least 1 profitable quarter, and they're growing revenue, let's say roughly 50% year to year. But they saw the opportunity, as well as potentially the need, given some of the other market dynamics, to get into a new segment of ad tech. So you know, with all the little plankton guys there on the bottom, if I'm kind of looking at this from a client standpoint and saying, wow, how many best-of-breed vendors can I kind of wrap my arms around, it becomes a little bit of a challenge. So I think yesterday I had read an article regarding Kellogg's, who you know, they've been very vocal about moving and internalizing a lot of their ad tech and digital marketing solutions, whereas, you know, their team's managing it versus their agency of record. They actually have the need now for a marketing infrastructure support company to kind of monitor and manage the you know, 20 different vendors that they potentially are trying to manage through their internal team now. So I believe it was Mindtree, and that's another public IT service company that we'll be keeping our eye on here.
Just a quick interjection, technical. We had one of our participants say that they couldn't hear our audio. Folks could just ping me back on the chat function to let me know that they can hear us. That would be great. If not, we'll address the issue.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So, and I think further to Seth's point, I think one of the things that we've seen in digital marketing services is this consolidation among a couple. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, IBM and Accenture tout themselves as the largest digital agencies in the world, and I think that, you know, they would consider themselves the whales now with the nimbleness of a plankton. But I think over time, over the next couple, that's a funny image, isn't it? Over the next couple of years, I think we'll see others that will rise up to take on the IBMs and the Accentures, and it'll create a challenge for all the little plankton to, although $150 billion marketplace, it's a lot of stuff to go around.
That's a lot of blue ocean.
It is. So one more thing before we take some of the questions is I just want to throw up a slide that shows where digital fits within TBR. So you can see across the top there are all the different all the different research areas, digital being one of them. We produce vendor analysis, and what we're doing this year is 20 separate reports on vendors in both the ad tech and the digital marketing services space. We actually just released today's report on Accenture. in the digital marketing services space. We've already released reports on Sapient Nitro and Rocket Fuel, and we'll roll out 19 more over the course of 2015. Those provide a look at an individual vendor. It gives us a chance to apply the vendor-specific business lens approach that we have to research and analysis. And then, in addition, this month and next month, we'll be publishing benchmarks, one around ad tech and one around digital marketing services, each of them having 18 to 20 or so of the leading companies in the benchmark. It's an opportunity to sort of compare apples to apples. With any benchmark or any of the reports that we do, we put it through our own taxonomy so that while Accenture may describe their services one way and Ogilvy and Mather describe it a different way, we use our taxonomy to make sure that you have an opportunity to compare like services and grouped in the same way. And so the benchmarks will provide financial metrics. They'll provide a look at different geos and a look at different geographies and a look at different service lines. Those will come out semi-annually, again, this month and next month for ad tech and digital marketing services, and then again later on in the year. Then the last piece of research that we're doing is around what do clients, what do customers actually say and want and do, and how are they spending their budgets, how are their budgets changing, who's top of mind now, who do they expect to be buying from in the near term, and one of the things that has interested us in particular as we do customer research across TBR is who within organizations are making decisions about technology spend. And normally we're talking about IT, but in ad tech and digital marketing services, we'll be talking about the digital specific spend. And it's an area that has changed over time. It used to be the CIO only who made the decision about, or at least had the budget around technology. That is, as you all probably well know, it's spread out quite a bit. So that's what the customer research is about. And those are, and then the last thing on the bottom, of course, we do a lot of custom research. What ends up happening for us is that a benchmark drives new questions. So people either say, thank you for going into this geo and letting us know how these 4 vendors are performing in Europe and the Middle East and Africa, but I really need to go deeper into this country or that country or this particular set of competitors. Or people say to us, thank you for breaking down the service line. Now I need you to go deeper and deeper on it. So we do a fair amount of custom research that's based off of the initial work around the vendor-specific profiles and then the benchmarks as well. So that's the pitch for where we are in terms of what TBR is doing around digital marketing services and ad tech. And then I know we have a couple questions in. We'll start with the first one. And what's the reason for customers moving from managed services model to SaaS model in this space?
Hey, Patrick, I'll take this. So great question, and it's a combination of things. So just at a very high level, the kind of knee-jerk response would be cost savings. So basically going from a managed services model where you're paying for the software and the vendor's managed service wraparound to a purely SaaS model, that's one factor, so the cost savings. Number 2 would be just getting closer to the data. So data ownership is increasingly becoming critical, and the ability at which you can digest data, synthesize it, and then make business decisions based on what you're seeing in real time, essentially. So those are 2. Maybe one other would be just transparency. So in some cases, there's been a lack of transparency with some vendors, or even agencies. So clients are saying, hey, you know what, let us take the reins, and then just becoming more comfortable with ad tech in general. So understanding all of the colorful acronyms that are out there and all the nuances at arm's length, and then basically becoming comfortable where you say, hey, you know what, I'm ready to make the investment internally. I know digital and digital marketing, advertising are huge components of our business, and we really should have internal expertise. So those are some of the kind of overarching reasons.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Sir.
Yep. So another question that we had is kind of on the maturity. You outlined, I don't know if we have a slide that has some of the different segments. in the space, both ad tech and digital marketing, right? So is there a progression for folks as they go through this, or a maturity model? And does that mean that there'll be some segments that are not as big today that will be growing more rapidly than other parts of the market?
I would say digital media buying, kind of old school services led, is probably in a tough spot right now, hence the acquisition of tech vendors by Publicis and WPP. So I think the writing is kind of on the wall that that's not necessarily going to be a high growth opportunity, nor a high margin opportunity, because clients are increasingly squeezing the agencies. Instead of getting 15 to 20% fees tacked on to their work, it's single digits now. So that's probably a tough industry to be in. So that's where I think some of these companies like Sapient Nitro, for example, it was kind of a hybrid. They worked with media and they did some media buying, but they were more of the technology, first kind of organization. And similar to that, there's another independent company that we're looking at here, Merkle. They've been more of a CRM based agency, but they certainly do have a media buying component, and I do think clients increasingly want to combine CRM with the media buying function. So I think if you're a standalone player, like a lot of the traditional digital agencies under some of those holding companies are, that they're either going to have to expand capabilities organically or inorganically with some of these acquisitions.
Yeah, the other thing I would add, and so, we're seeing this in the digital marketing services space, is the digital strategy, and that is difficult because it encompasses, to go back to that one of those slides, and actually I guess I'll pull it up, that shows the sort of digital transformation. When we talk about digital strategy consulting with the Accentures, the IBMs, PwC, Deloitte, those kinds of firms, it is difficult sometimes to draw a line between what is digital marketing services strategy consulting and what is digital transformation consulting. But I think what's happening for those vendors in particular is that they are very much in the early stages of, well, I don't want to say it's too much in the early stages. These practices are developed. They have people that are very good at it. This isn't new, but it's new for a lot of the customers. So for a lot of the customers, they're answering those questions that you get with any kind of strategic change, any kind of strategic shift. So since we've seen the market begin to grow, I do think the market is going to continue to grow rapidly. So Stuart, in terms of that curve that they're on for digital strategy, it's still going up, and it's still it's beyond its infancy, but it's definitely not, it's not a toddler, it's maybe a middle schooler, not even a middle schooler, elementary school.
So it seems like marketing was a ripe target for this, as a lot of marketing was done with disconnected, and it was extremely difficult to collect end user level data around activity, campaigns, emails. So now that we've gone to digital consumption, everybody is consuming everything. Information from your car goes to the dealer via digital. It's much easier to instrument those, and so that's what we're really seeing, is that kind of instrumentation of a practice that before this had been driven by qualitative methods. So are there some other areas where we see, qualitative relationships or areas of a business function that could, like marketing and advertising, were always considered more soft areas, whereas manufacturing, I think, has been driven by hard feedback numbers for a long time.
And that gets to that whole digital transformation, and one of the reasons I think why we picked marketing to look at first is that it's one of the first areas that's undergone this massive shift, and it's probably one of the areas where, from a strategic point of view, you would rather invest in and make that change into something kind of as soft as marketing, because you're not going to go out and change your entire supply chain overnight, or make that kind of transformation. If that makes sense.
And of course, as we know, marketing creates leads, and leads lead to sales.
Right.
So anything you can do there is a direct payoff. So we had a question that says, what is the role of Internet of Things solutions in the digital marketing portfolios of services? So we got a kind of multi-part question here. So I'm going to set the stage a little bit for our view of ad tech, digital marketing, Internet of Things, all belong to a broad category of elements that we call systems of interaction, which are opposed to the very traditional back office functions of systems of transaction, right? So transactions where I'm putting in an order, or I'm running a machine and I'm making X number of parts. Those are all transactions. The systems of interaction are when you're tracking the interaction of everybody doing everything, right? So we see IoT in a big way driving an expansion of the digital space and leaving the door open for services firms and platform firms to begin to come up with solutions. There's a lot of governance, compliance at the high end, all the way down to the question of just how are we going to store data that could come from 9 billion people's smartphones on a millisecond basis.
Stored securely. Not that security is top of mind for anybody that has Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield at the moment, but yeah, and you know, Internet of Things ties into, you can see it on this slide right here where it sort of fits in with our thinking. It's although, you know, I don't know, looking at that, I'm trying to think of which is the biggest of those purple ones in terms of opportunity, and cloud is maturing enough, analytics as well, and maybe it's Internet of Things where the biggest growth is going to come from. I want to shift a little bit, and there was another question that came in about platforms, and we talked about this, I think, on the second prediction. I'll pull it up in a minute, but is there really going to be sort of a best-of-breed platform out there? Is it going to be something that when we talk about platform wars that all clients are going to migrate to, or what's going to happen? Seth?
Great question. So definitely trying to standardize on a single platform has been a goal for a lot of the global holding companies, but it's also a challenge because if, for example, when Publicis signed a data management platform agreement kind of agency-wide with Adobe, does that platform kind of serve the needs of all of their clients, which span multiple industries, verticals, geos, et cetera, or you know, is there enough flexibility that's actually going to be the case? I would lean towards probably not. So then, you know, with somebody like WPP, they say, okay, we're going to kind of build our own proprietary platform, and again, they're going to have a similar situation where, you know, not being a technology or not having technology as their DNA, are they really going to build a best-of-breed platform to, again, support dozens, if not hundreds of clients across a bunch of different verticals? You know, they've got to be concerned about, you know, PII, data leakage, a number of things, portability, and it's not really, again, they're media-driven throughout history, so all of a sudden in the past year or so trying to make this switch to becoming a vendor and offering, you know, the best solutions in market, I think that's a very, very tall order.
So another question that's come in is, does the pursuit for greater margins now outweigh vendor agnosticism?
I guess that's another one for me. So
I have a thought on that, but go first.
There's been plenty of banter in a lot of the digital publications out there about agencies and being transparent just with their existing vendors and the way that they service clients. So when you kind of add in the fact that they now own some of these technologies that directly compete with the previous platforms they might have been licensing, it would be mighty, I don't know, it'd be difficult for me to sit here and say with a straight face that if they can use platform A, B, or C and they're all, you know, third-party softwares, or they can use their home-cooked platform and get substantially, you know, higher margins and everything else that comes along with it. Yeah, that.
So here's my turn on this, is that we see firms like IBM with Watson talking about, you know, answering the unponderables, right? So they're making a market in that, and they're positioning it as an extremely highly value-added service. And I would suggest that, you know, particularly ad tech and digital marketing have the potential to be more directly impactful to a business right away, and can and you can connect that more quickly to the bottom line. So the opportunity there to really measure the impact and to drive a business, to improve the quality of the business and its profitability as a customer should lead a firm to differentiate itself and to create stronger margins. You know, the margin performance is there. The business case is much easier to figure it out, even easier than analytics. So, which happens to be a tool set rather than a solution. I think what we're talking about in this space are solutions that utilize tool sets. So, yeah, I think that there's it's a new category of applications, and there's a lot of people competing for it, and I think price is one of the elements. I think we saw this years and years and years ago with some of the ERP and financials that came out. There were wildly varying price points sometimes for the same function. I think those firms that were able to create a sustainable differentiation and sustain their margins because they were delivering premium value to large enterprise customers were the ones that were able to survive the big shakeouts. And that will happen. It's a natural order. So we're just in that early period when there's just a lot of entrants. They haven't put all the pieces together yet. So that's my spin on the margin story. There is an opportunity for above normal margins for the IT industry.
I would throw one other thing out there, and that's looking at a lot of the vendors in the IT services space that are playing heavily in advertising technology and digital marketing services. So think, again, Accenture, PwC, Deloitte, all the rest of them. You hear, or I hear from them, I see from them again and again this idea of being vendor agnostic. They don't care what technology solution, they're just there to help you and solve your business problem. That's a load. There's always a preference for a particular technology vendor, always. And now that varies from partner to partner, it varies from practice to practice, and may vary depending on what industry they're in. But the vendor agnostic is a great way of saying we'll play with everybody, but yeah, we have favorites too.
Right.
So
I think one area where the IT services, we'll call them purists, can come in, where some of the agency holding companies might have a conflict of interest, would be to do due diligence, you know, potentially test or evaluate, say, an owned platform of WPP or Publicis, and then also evaluate all of the independent vendors that are out there, and ultimately either guide the client's hand in decisioning which vendors are sweet to work with, or at least give some strong indication in what best of breed looks like.
So as we wrap up this prediction seminar, and because this is such a new area, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit with our team and say, last question, what's the prediction that you were afraid to put in writing? What's the big, bold prediction looking forward? It could be within this year, or I'll let you off the hook a little bit and say in the coming years.
Oof. Wow. Well, I would love to see another. I mean, we've already seen a couple of data management platforms get acquired. So LinkedIn acquired Bizzo, and BlueKai was acquired by Oracle. So I think it's time for a pretty substantial demand-side platform or DSP to either IPO or get acquired. And some might make the argument that Rocket Fuel's a DSP. They kind of are on the outside, but you know, they're still trying to bake their SaaS interface and really, you know, get in market a true DSP that's got that interface for clients to use. So I think either Turn or MediaMath, they're probably due to go public, or you know, are definitely on a short list of M&A.
Yeah, I'm gonna take something that happened and sort of spin it out to what would be the best case scenario for the two companies involved. And so one company has massive presence in the market. They are truly omnipresent across the globe, across the internet. You can't not run across them. They've become their own verb. They are who everybody uses and increasingly uses in ad tech and digital marketing services, but they are purely horizontal. The other company is a partnership. It's run like an old law firm. It is as white shoe as it gets, and it has those consulting relationships, and it has those deep deep industry-specific experts and again, relationships that that this other firm doesn't. It's PwC and it's Google, and the two of them could, if their relationship becomes more of a marriage and less of a convenience, it was announced back in the fall, they could together truly disrupt this market in a massive way. It requires a commitment by both of them to give up a little bit, and neither one of those firms is known for giving up anything, so maybe it won't happen. If it does, if they really truly at the highest level see eye to eye, I think they could knock IBM and Accenture and all the other the big players in advertising technology and digital marketing services completely out.
Wow. It's on a smaller note, but somebody like a BCG, I know that they've actually kind of cozied up with Google on their buying platform, so DoubleClick Bid Manager, and I never would have imagined that BCG would get their hands dirty on an ad tech platform and work with it, but the feedback we got from Google was that they actually came back to the Google product team and had recommendations in how to improve the UI and a couple other functions.
So I'm going to have the last word here. The prediction I have is a little bit of a cautionary tale. So given the ability for people to aggregate information across multiple data sets and the propensity for people to say, well, it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, there will be some kind of a major large segment profiling and privacy concern that will come up that will get politicized somewhere in the world. Someone will grab a hold of this and say, you know, the powers that be, the ones that are abusing you, are, you know, they know everything there is to know about you. Big Brother is here, and they're manipulating you in the market. So we just need the cautionary tale here is about balance and about unintended consequences. These are extremely powerful tools, and when we start adding data from the Internet of Things into these types of analyses, the ability to opt out, to manage the things that are seen and aggregated about you by role, by your personal role. Maybe I want more information about me in my professional space versus my personal space versus my social, you know, my community life. There's a lot of different roles that can be conflated here. So there's a cautionary tale for this part of the industry to begin to provide some resources for this, or they could wind up being painted with a broad and very negative brush.
I thought you were going to say they were going to be hit by the ugly stick. That's where you were going. So.
I chose a softer metaphor. Right. So I'd like to thank the digital team here for these predictions, and thank you everyone for your questions. You can follow the team and TBR on Twitter at the handles listed on this slide, and please check our pages on SlideShare and YouTube as well. The links are below on this slide. Before you sign off, we'd like to ask you to complete a brief survey about today's webinar. We want to know what your feedback is, and any kind of feedback that you can provide is read, is examined, and we will be getting back to you with some questions. We'll keep the Q&A function open for a couple of minutes for any last-minute questions. Thank you all very much for joining, and we hope to speak with you soon.